Assalamu alaikum. Okay, I have regained my stage. What stands between you and supper is a patient who needs renal dialysis. 850 rand per session, discounted rate, 3 times a week, is what we fund patients for to get renal dialysis. We have over 50 patients within the country that we've supported, and at any particular point, Cape Town has up to 15 patients on renal dialysis. And any funds that are raised only for one reason, for the patients with renal dialysis. I point you in the direction of the picture. Just leaving it there, hanging there. We have a Yoko machine outside. If you don't like that, iCoca, EFTs, and a Swift account for the fatherless. So I'm just mentioning it. Her Excellency, the former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Minister Naledi Pandor. We had the privilege and honor of hearing her speak on Thursday evening. And we had the privilege and honor of hearing the way she said was that she was expected to be a paleontologist, expected to attend all manner of congresses, but we said we should stick to her roots. On Thursday night, we offered her the job. She has not gratefully accepted yet, but we've offered her the job of the political chief of the IMA, South Africa. The rest of the countries must do their own work. Minister, in your first job as the political chairperson of IMA, I call you to the stage. Thank you very much, Program Director. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good evening to everyone who is here. Well, I think I've been played, as they say, because I was invited to speak at the dinner on Thursday. And being a good student, I prepared myself very, very well for that. Then I was told there are students from Palestine who would like to meet with me, and they will be here at the Saturday dinner. So would I be available if I'm still in Cape Town? And with alacrity, I agreed to come and meet the students from Palestine who are studying medicine in South Africa, completing their studies in the health sciences. I've now met those students, and I'm rather astounded that I'm expected to say something sensible this evening, which I've not written down at all. But I thought I would like to reiterate some of what I said on Thursday. I'll try and use different words for those who were at the dinner. Essentially, what I spoke about on Thursday was to convey my analysis, which is shared, fortunately, by many very bright intellectuals. I'm not one, but many analysts share this notion that the world today, at this moment, is at an inflection point. What this means is that in terms of the current geopolitics, there's a looming opportunity for us as members of the globe to see whether we can turn around the very negative unipolarity in the geopolitics of today that has affected our world in very negative terms. And the inflection point is for those of us from the South who have more progressive ideals, are we ready to intervene to use the inflection point to turn things around. This is the challenge that is confronting humanity today. And if we waste the moment, what is going to happen is we're going to continue with that dominance of the conservative Western ideals, which do not speak to the good of the world, but which have caused a great deal of harm all over the world. And what we want is the insertion of new values and principles that will assert the good of humanity rather than the desire of the powerful as a driving force in global affairs. This is what the inflection point refers to. So for us, as part of humanity, the question we've got to really answer, are we going to make good on this inflection point? And I'm really pleased that the government of South Africa decided to go to the International Court of Justice because they used the moment properly. See, we could all have continued, as many did, to watch the current affairs, the news, and observe the terrible slaughter of the people of Palestine. But we decided, as the government of South Africa, that something had to be done, that we needed to take a step. Of course, many in the cabinet wished that they could pick up a rifle, as they did during the struggle, and that they could go and fight in Gaza. But we could not do that. So what weapon was available to us? We said the only weapon available at this time is international law. And as we recognized that, we also acknowledged that international law has not been used equitably for all nations of the world, that there's been an imbalance and unfairness in the implementation of international law. But we said, nonetheless, it is critical that we bring Israel and its leaders before the global court of justice, and that we unveil to the world that Israel will stop enjoying impunity. Because this is what has allowed Israel to act as it does. It's that because of the experience of Jewish people under the terrible war in Europe, there has evolved an attitude of impunity, that they can do what they wish because they suffered, or their ancestors, their forebears suffered. And as a result of that, all action is excused. This is not correct. The world should move away from that. So the first step was, let us bring this matter to a court, because when you stand in court, you stand to be judged. When you stand in court, facts must be presented. When you stand in court, you have to defend yourself. And you would have seen when the legal team of South Africa presented their arguments, when the team of Israel stood up, the leading advocate for Israel almost dropped his papers, because there is no response when you are in the global court. You cannot lie when facts are placed before the world. And even though he tried to argue, you could see that the arguments were without merit, that the case that had been put by South Africa was very clear, that there's an intention of genocide, that indeed what we're seeing is an ethnic cleansing of immense proportions that is absolutely troubling. Of course, I know that once we speak of the plight of the people of Palestine, the refrain that is often thrown at me is, why am I not speaking about the hostages that have been taken by Hamas? We are concerned about all innocent life. And not referring to one doesn't mean you neglect their plight. But the greatest harm and the reason why we stress the plight of the people of Palestine is they are occupied, they are oppressed, they do not enjoy freedom and justice by dint of law of the state of Israel. And thus it is vital that when we talk of this question, we lift out the need to address the oppression, the need to address the injustice. This is why we would highlight the plight of the people of Palestine, not by any means indicating that those who may be held as hostages or captive are by any means lesser human beings. I stressed when I spoke last week, or earlier on Thursday, that when we speak about the plight of the people of Palestine, it is not due to us being Muslims. It is due to us respecting justice, freedom, and human dignity. And this derives from our belief that all human beings equally are deserving of freedom, justice, and human dignity. And this is what we wish, this is what we desire for the people of Palestine. And I know that of the Ummah of South Africa, we will not rest in our desire for this outcome of freedom, of justice, of enjoyment of human dignity. I have argued that we cannot rest because the people of Palestine and many others in the world supported South Africans to achieve their freedom. And so we have an obligation to give support to the people of Palestine who supported us in our hard times. So that was part of what I said. And the key question is, how do we use the inflection point? And I leave that question with you. I could speak on this issue for hours, but I don't want to detain you, given your desire probably for dinner. I wish to conclude by really congratulating IMA on the professional work that the association does to really ensure that members of the association and of the medical profession enjoy the opportunity of skills, knowledge generation, research, and innovation, which are so important to the endeavor of science. I am very, very happy to see members from other African countries present at this conference. I think that's extremely important because one of the challenges that I believe we as Africans have to address is our inadequate presence in research and innovation worldwide. We've got to ensure that we become knowledge generators. I think we're not addressing this adequately. We've got to ensure that we build a very strong pharmacological sector in Africa. We've got to ensure that we support innovation on the African continent. We must establish centers of excellence in science and innovation throughout Africa, because we cannot be, as Africans, perennial victims of others, perennial clients of others, perennial recipients from others. we need to begin to design, to produce, to commercialize ourselves as Africa. So I'm hoping that part of the work that IMA will lead in is to ensure that we enhance that aspect of innovation, because Africa has to get to a point where we have industrialized, where we have very, very strong productive capacity, and where we do not constantly import from elsewhere. We produce ourselves and export to others. We also have an opportunity in understanding who we are. And I think the professionals gathered here, particularly the young people, have a great deal of work to do in genetics, particularly biogenetics, to understand who are Africans, what is their genetic makeup. The drugs that we're using at the moment, which are really produced not for our makeup, but for those of others, how do we ensure that we use bioinformatics to produce the most appropriate and responsive drugs and other diagnostics, treatments for Africa? Do we understand the diseases on our continent? Do we understand how we resolve them? What is the nexus between socioeconomic development, families, and healthy community? And how do we address that? So I'm thrilled at being invited to the association. I definitely will not be your political officer because there's so many other things that one should do. But it's been a great privilege and honor for me to be present at your conference. And I have this desire that what we should have, every African country should have at least 10 centers of scientific excellence. If we could do that, I believe that this continent will lead the world. And I believe having done that, we would have responded to the inflection point. So with my unprepared remarks, I thank you for this opportunity and I wish you well for the rest of your conference. Jazakallah, assalamu alaikum.
Would you like to give you a gift?
Oh, another gift. Thank you. Thank you. That's so kind of you. Thank you very much. That's so kind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.